This pie is a lie. You know what, first off, I'm gonna take this off because it's no longer chilly in my house, and especially after having my oven on for I don't know how many hours today, and now I'm sitting in front of a bunch of bright lights. So anyway, what the heck is going on? Welcome guys to my humble home where I have baked a bunch of pies and let them set and cool a little bit. These guys might be a little bit unset, but we'll roll with it. So we're going into the fall season. The holiday season is right around the corner. That's right, it's the time of year where you start eating more pies and everything like that. But I know that some people are on a bit of a budget this year, especially with the increasing food prices. So I wanted to revisit a subject that I visited before, and that's something called like desperation recipes, specifically desperation pies, obviously. So in case you couldn't tell, I've got here an apple pie and a pecan pie in front of me. And I also have these two, which are mock pies. This is a mock apple pie and a mock pecan pie. It's basically something that will give you like the same kind of flavors, same kind of textures, but it uses cheaper ingredients and it's a lot easier to make. So first of all, let me say that this was quite an effort. Making 4 completely separate recipes took a long time, but hopefully they all turned out okay. So let's go ahead and start with this pecan pie. Now, if you wanted to check out the recipes for this, for the pecan pie, you see that the recipe that I used, step 1 is to buy a bottle of Caro's corn syrup, and step 2 is to follow the recipe on the back of the bottle of Caro's corn syrup, because they make pretty good pecan pie recipes. Alright, so I'm going to slice this guy open, see if I can get a nice piece of it. Let's see how this guy turned out. Oh my goodness, look at that. Perfectly well set. Oh, that's really pretty nice. And I'm also going to take a slice out of my mock pecan pie. Ooh, I don't know if this one's set. I don't know if I give this one enough time to set. So the primary difference between a pecan pie and a mock pecan pie is that the mock pecan pie uses it uses a lot of the same ingredients. You got the corn syrup in there, you've got the sugar in there, you've got the eggs in there to make a nice custard, but instead of pecans, you use thick rolled oats, like you'd make with oatmeal. You don't cook the oats beforehand. Oh yeah, look at that, it's a little bit crumbly. And the reason for that is because, honestly, oats are super cheap, as you may or may not know, and they don't actually impart a whole ton of flavor, but pecans, I think pecans have one of the more unique flavors of a lot of the tree nuts that are out there. But unfortunately, pecans are super expensive. To make them doesn't really take a whole lot of time. It's only about 10 minutes, maybe 15 minutes of preparation, and then it just bakes in the oven. So let's try this pecan pie. Oh yeah. Very sweet. Very unctuous. Get a lot of richness from those pecans. A nice little crunch from those pecans. So get a little bit of texture there. And this ooey gooey kind of sticky custard that this stuff is just drowning in. It's very good. Hard to go wrong with a good pecan pie. Now the mock pecan pie, not quite as much ooey gooiness. Let's try. You do have this nice like crisp topping on top, where it's almost like the custard is a little bit burnt, like a brulee. Okay, interesting. So the recipe calls for a lot of butter. More than a stick of butter goes into this one. So all the richness is actually like butter fat kind of richness, which is really tasty in my opinion. I love butter, it's so good. You don't get any texture in this though. It's very chewy, I think you lose that texture, you lose the unique flavor of the pecan, but you do still keep that richness. I think it's a pretty good like substitute, especially if you've never had pecan pie. If I had this, I would not miss it at all. Like, oh, that is very, very delicious. I think similarity-wise, not really super similar. The pecan pie is a classic. If you like a pecan pie, you know what you like. It's like an 8 out of 10, you know, at least an 8.1 out of 10. The mock pecan pie probably costs about half as much. Honestly, like a bag of pecans is like $15 nowadays. It's crazy. But yeah, the mock pecan pie, still really good, at least like a 7.3 out of 10. So you get a lot of that sweetness and the richness from the butter. But yeah, it's a little bit different. Similarity-wise, maybe 5 out of 10. Not really super similar. So next up, good old-fashioned apple pie. Gonna try this real quick. Now, if you want the recipe for the apple pie, I just made it up as I went along. So this is a Dutch apple pie with a crumb topping. I mainly went with a Dutch apple pie just so it would be as similar as possible to the mock version, which uses a kind of like a crumb topping. Now, the interesting thing is that mock apple pie is made with Ritz crackers instead of with apples. Because honestly, apples, they can be a little bit pricey, but they're not super pricey, I think. I feel like it's not going to break the bank. But with the apple pie, the big thing is that it just takes so dang long, you know? It's just sitting there, peeling and chopping apples. Ugh. This absolutely did not set. Oh my goodness, this is apple pie soup. Yeah, look at that. Did not set at all. But maybe that was my bad. Maybe I did something wrong. I don't know. Still, looks like a pretty good apple crumble, if nothing else. One last pie up front. Oh, this feels like it actually did set quite nicely. Now, I know there's a lot of different varieties of apples out there that you can use. Some people like a really tart apple, and they'll make their apple pies with Granny Smith apples, which are probably the most tart and least sweet apples out there. So I always use Fuji apples, which are the opposite end of the spectrum. Very little tartness, mostly sweetness from a Fuji apple. If you go with something in the middle, like a Golden Delicious apple or maybe a Honey Crisp apple, you're going to get a different experience. But those are the two, I think, the most popular kinds of apples to use. Huh. Okay, interesting. So with the mock apple pie, this is actually a very strange recipe. It actually starts, I think the thing about the mock apple pie was that it was much quicker to make, basically. So you get this pot of boiling water, mix in the sugar, mix in the cream of tartar, and then you put in a sleeve of Ritz crackers and let it boil for a while. And I think that kind of like softens the Ritz crackers a little bit, so it gives it this appearance and maybe a texture of what an apple, you know, an apple in an apple pie is like. And once you pour that into a crust, then you make a crumble very similar to the kind of crumble that you'd make with for a Dutch apple pie. But the main difference is that instead of using flour as a binder, you use another sleeve of Ritz crackers. So see, it's basically just sugar, butter, and Ritz crackers. So price-wise, I don't think there's a whole lot of difference between these two recipes. However, the savings with the mock apple pie was that it was so much quicker to make. All right, so let's get to it. Let's get to a taste test. Try my apple crumble. Let's see how it compares. Okay, yeah. Sweet, rich, nice texture from that crumble on top. I used big chunks of apples, so it's got a lot of bite to it. I mean, it's delicious, guys. This is 100% my favorite kind of pie. I love apple pie so much. 9.3 out of 10. I mean, this is delicious. Compliments to the chef. All right, the mock apple pie. This is so weird. I'm eating Ritz crackers. I don't know how this could possibly seem like apples. I did add a splash of lemon juice. I should say the recipe called for a splash of lemon juice and a sprinkle of cinnamon on top of the Ritz crackers. I think that's to give it a flavor that's a little bit reminiscent of a Granny Smith apple, but we'll see. Okay, that's interesting. That's interesting. This is definitely much saltier than my apple pie because Ritz crackers have some salt in them. The texture is not far off of what you'd expect from an apple pie with really thinly sliced apples in it, though. It's very similar. The flavor, I'm getting no tartness from that lemon juice at all. I'm getting a little hint of cinnamon. Maybe if I'd used a little bit more cinnamon, that would come through. But honestly, a lot of the flavor in an apple pie comes from the brown sugar and the cinnamon. And I feel like that's where I'm getting a lot of flavor here. And that crumb topping, I mean, this is an excellent texture in the crumb topping. If you gave this to me, I would think it was just an apple pie that was made with, kind of apples that didn't have a lot of flavor to them. But the texture is spot on. That is uncanny. That is ridiculous. Oh my goodness, that must be that cream of tartar that gives it just a little bit of bite. I think similarity-wise, this one's like an 8.1 out of 10 or something, an 8.5 out of 10 maybe? Very similar to what I'd expect from an apple pie. Flavor-wise, like I said, not quite as good, but still a pretty good apple, or pretty good pie flavor to it. Like, I certainly wouldn't turn this down. I would give the flavor of this guy maybe like a 7.5 out of 10. Yeah, I mean, really, really delicious. So yeah, if you're looking for an alternative to the more expensive pies out there, then maybe checking out some of these mock recipes would be a good thing to do this holiday season for you. I've got way too much pie in front of me, so I know that I'm gonna friggin' dig in. So without any further ado, I don't know, let's just see how much of this pie I can get through before this recording runs out. How's that sound? This thing sets so well. I could eat it like pizza. Oh my gosh. What should I start with? I think I'm going to see how much of this apple pie I can get through first, because like I said, it is absolutely my favorite. I just love apple pie. Clearly, I still need to work on making sure that the center is nice and set. Maybe adding more flour to it, maybe adding more something like Pecan, something like that to really soak up all those juices would help. Oh, so good. Next up, see if we can do this in about 5 minutes. I don't have too much longer on those recordings, so I gotta go. That had to have been about, I don't know, 7,000 or 8,000 calories of pie right there. Alright guys, I'm going to call it quits there. I'm going to see if I can share these next 2 pies with some of my friends. So I hope you guys got a kick out of that video. I hope you enjoyed watching as much as I enjoyed making it. Until next time, peace out. You guys have a good one. These pies are liars. These pies are lying to me. These pies are liars.